I just sat here in the dark getting totally spooked. This is good enough. I think it broke my brain a little bit. You gotta shop around your cults. The animal mummies wish to thank the following. And also I lied a little bit earlier. How am I supposed to function after this? Jeff Goldblum does not belong in this world. I know it seems like I'm talking negative about it. I am not enjoying this in the slightest. Which is a plot twist I did not see coming. Did I like them? No. Hi everyone, welcome to An Abundance of Books. My name is Julia and today we're starting the rabbit vlog. This is going to be a really tough one to explain, to justify. Mostly it's because I wanted to do it for fun. But essentially what we're doing is paying homage to Books and Lala, who for the month of August is going to be reading rabbit books. It's a running joke on her channel that every book that has rabbit on the cover that she reads, she gives 5 stars. So we're putting this premise to the test, or she's putting this premise to the test. I have no such affinity for rabbits, but I thought that it would be a fun and very open way to do a vlog like this. So if that sounds of interest to you, get excited. Kayla has not posted her video yet, but if I remember, I will link her video down below once it's up, presumably at the end of the month. But for my part, there are 4 things that I want to read in this vlog. The first is called What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher. This is also the Literally Dead book club pick, so we're just a whole Kayla Stan channel at this point. And I don't know anything about this. It's a retelling of The House of Usher, but I don't know what that means. And I've previously read one Kingfisher and I did enjoy it, but there were a couple things that just didn't suit my taste specifically. And it's horror, which is always a little bit hard, but I'm excited to get into this one. I'm also going to be reading Bunny by Ramona Awad. This is one of Kayla's favorites, probably a big inspiration for doing this thing in general. And I previously DNF'd Bunny. I read probably the first chapter, maybe 2, and really didn't enjoy it. So I'm gonna give it a go, but I have no issues with DNFing it. I do have the audiobook, so that will hopefully help. And then 2 books that I bought specifically for this purpose. Rabbits by Terry Miles. Oh wow, the font in this is tiny. Oh good. This is something about an alternate reality game, very secretive. I think it's going to have some thrillery elements to it, but I really don't know much going in. And I've been keeping my eye open for the past couple months looking for rabbit books, and I happened across this one just really recently. It's called Awayland by Ramona Ausubel. Why can't I do that? And you tell me, that the bottom one's a rabbit, right? The top one I know is not, but the bottom one's a rabbit. Perhaps a hare, but I think that counts. This is a collection of short stories, also an homage to Kayla, who loves a short story collection, and it's separated into 4 parts, but it's super big font. It's just over 200 pages, I believe. So hopefully this will be a nice quick thing to get through. And actually, we can start talking about it because I've already started reading a little bit. I have read the first section of here, which is the first 3 stories. 2 I liked, 1 I didn't, but they're all very different. It's hard to figure out the tone of this. The only thing that I can tell is each one is set in a different place, sort of thing. And the couple that I read were a lot about like thinking about where you're from or going back to where you're from, stuff like that. The first one was probably my favorite. It's called You Can Find Love Now, and it is about a cyclops filling out his dating profile. Definitely not what I thought I was getting into, but pleasantly surprised. There are 11 stories in here in total. I'm trying not to just blow through it because I could very easily do that, but I want to spend my time on novels. And also I lied a little bit earlier. I have already started Bunny by Ramona Awad. I'm actually over halfway through it already because I wanted to give it a good long ways because I had DNF'd it before. I didn't want to commit to it if I wasn't actually gonna finish it. But I'm really enjoying it. The audiobook is really making all the difference because it's a weird book and it also starts very slow. Like you have to start in a normal place to get to a weird place. It's definitely written in a confusing style because the main character is confused a lot of the time, and I think it works really well as an audiobook because if I was reading this physically, I would read every line twice and still be confused. So this is a story about our main character, Samantha, who is going to this prestigious arts college where she's majoring in poetry. creative writing, something like that. And there's this group of girls in her, what do they call it? It's not a class, it's a discussion workshop. Workshop, I think is what they call it. There are these 4 girls who all call each other Bunny, and she is slowly being integrated into their world. Well, hi. Did you figure this video needed some cat content? Just say hi, and then you can leave, okay? No, you just really want to go, okay. It's really hard with this book to know how much you want to give away. I feel like I knew a fair bit going into it, stuff that didn't happen until basically where I am now. Though from here on out, I don't think I know anything. Just know that it gets very weird in the writing style and pretty gory in content. So far, it's actually reminding me a lot of Catherine House, a book that I did not like, but I did also read this one physically, so maybe if I did it on audio, I'd get more into the vibe and be okay with that. But really, I think Bunny is just a better version of this with more explanation and more plot and more cool stuff that I can latch onto. This is very cerebral, I guess. But yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with Bunny, which is a plot twist I did not see coming, but I'm very happy with it. Though I can only imagine being at the 50% mark now, how much weirder it's gonna get. I hope it gets a lot weirder. I am here for it. All right, that's enough talking for now. We should probably do some reading. I'm really hyped for all of this. I think Bunny is just putting me in a really good mood, and hopefully everything else that I have to read makes me as giddy. This one, I think, could very easily be a 5-star book for me. Short stories are never really my thing. I keep giving them a chance, but it's not for me. But I'm still happy to milk it for some content. Yeah, I guess that's it. See you in the next clip. It occurs to me immediately after filming that last clip that my experiment is inherently incomplete because I have not figured out what my track record is with rabbit books so far. So I went through my whole Goodreads and like enlarged all of the covers that are just random crap on them. And it turns out I've only ever read 2 books with rabbits on the cover, both of them non-fiction books, both of which I gave 4 stars. We have Wow No Thank You by Samantha Irby, which is a collection of humorous essays, sort of. This is a whole collection by Samantha Irby, all with like a weird animal on the cover. And she had one before this, and I enjoyed that one a lot more than this one. This one was fine, but like, it felt like all of the good ideas were in her previous book. And the other one is The Psychopath Test by Jon Ronson, which I really enjoyed. Jon Ronson's a very good nonfiction writer, and I have nothing bad to say about this book. I gave it 4 stars because it probably just doesn't focus on what I care about. I don't have to wonder, I can just read my review. It looks like it boils down to my issue with it was that he is a journalist and not a scientist, and this just sort of poses more questions than gives any answers. So after this week, we're going to increase my rabbit consumption by 200%, and maybe we can get a better statistic. So far, not bad, at least. I'm really surprised it's only that many. Like, there are so many dogs and cats and birds. I had a couple snakes. I had more dinosaurs than rabbits, which is kind of wild. Hello. It is sometime later and I have reached part 3 in Bunny. I'm doing the audiobook. I look adorable. It's definitely gone downhill. I think it's just sort of the inherent nature of culty stories. I feel like I shouldn't say too much, but there's sort of a lull where in order for this to be the type of story that I think this is going to be, you have to get out of the cult and then take down the cult. And I don't want that. I want to just be in the cult the whole time, having a fun culty adventure. But I understand that that's not the intent of this. So we got some good stuff, some excellent weird stuff. Then after that it got a little bit less enjoyable, but I'm hopeful that this last third or so is going to redeem it in my eyes. Not redeem it, like it's still good. It's just not what I want it to be. Good morning. So somehow last night I just finished Bunny. I just sat here in the dark getting totally spooked, way more spooked than I thought I would get. and it was a great time. It made me really want to eat my words from the last clip because it ramped up in a way I did not anticipate. I feel like maybe I should have, but I don't feel like there's anything you can anticipate with this book. I think it broke my brain a little bit, but I think in a good way. You know when an audiobook gets so good that you stop doing all of the other stuff that you do to like entertain yourself while you're listening to an audiobook and you just sit there in the dark and you just can't believe the words that are happening to you? It was like that. I'm really struggling with what to think about this one. I've got Kayla's vlog where she reads this pulled up to hopefully tell me how I'm supposed to feel and kind of what happened. Like, I know what happened, and I think a lot of stuff is left purposefully vague, but like, why? And what did I just read? I'm so happy that I ended up reading this, though. I definitely feel justified in my previous DNF. There was a slog that I talked about in the last clip. That lull is really hard to get through, but then after that, it ramps up, and it goes some places. It goes a lot more horror-y than I was expecting it to. The one thing that I do think is funny in this book is like I was thinking before I finished it on like what is the metaphor behind it. You know, horror is always has a larger meaning than just what you're reading. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of like a commentary on loneliness. And then later the main character is like, this is a product of my loneliness. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't have to say it out loud. It kind of cheapens the themes if you just say it out loud. And there was another part where there's this new character who's a lot like Jason Dean from Heathers, behaving very similarly. A lot of Heathers vibes in this book in general. And at one point, someone is just like, yeah, he kind of reminds me of Jason Dean from Heathers. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, I feel like you should just trust your reader to pick up on stuff like that, but maybe people aren't as familiar with the things that this is referencing as I am. It was a wild time, and I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm kind of tempted to reread the last little bit to figure out what the hell happened. That being said, this is a 4 or a 5 star for me. It's just a matter of like, does all the good cancel out the negatives here? Definitely recommend if you want a spooky time. Definitely recommend the audiobook over the physical book. There's also my favorite description of a boy ever. He was leaning against the door frame in his scary, sexy way, a handsome, evil tree. Some of the writing in this, I do think it's a bit ridiculous, but I think that's kind of the nature of the story. What they're actually studying is narrative art. It's not poetry. They do look down on the poetry nerds, so apologies. So the writing's really over the top, and the plot is over the top, but I had a great time. And some genuine spooks. Sitting here in the dark was definitely a very fun experience for me. Fun and terrifying. But I'm a wimp, so that's about all I can handle. Like, I'm debating if this is one of the best books of the year. Like, this is a plot twist that I did not anticipate, and I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what anything means. Am I Bunny? Are you Bunny? So I'm gonna try to form some intelligent thoughts and read another book. How am I supposed to function after this? It's not fair. I know it looks like I haven't moved, but I have, I promise. I went outside. It wasn't death today. But I'm in the process of watching everyone's vlog on the thing and reading everything I can about Bunny. And there was just this explanation given. In Goodreads, there's like a question section that the community does, and I needed it. But they pointed out something that is so obvious in retrospect, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't see it, but it's like brilliant and I love it, and I've just decided I have to give this 5 stars. Like, that one sentence was like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. It's a really good book. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can see it. One of the comments was pointing out that, like, because this is a narrative art class that Samantha is taking in the book, that the whole book can kind of be seen through that lens as well, in like a weird meta way. There's just a lot of ways that you can read this, and I love that, and it's 5 stars. No one is more surprised than me. I wasn't even gonna do this. Truly, I added Bunny to this vlog because I thought that the 2 novels and a short story collection wasn't gonna be enough content, and I was gonna read Bunny and DNF it and just tell you that I did that. But now I'm giving it 5 stars, and I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know what's happening in the universe. What's Mercury doing right now? It's gotta be doing something weird. Good morning. Last night, I started on rabbits. And I have discovered why Kayla enjoys books with rabbits on the cover. It's because they're all so weird. Every single one is just like really high concept, really high execution. Like there's so much going on with this, and I am loving it. And just like I said that Bunny was the good version of Catherine House, Rabbits is the good version of House of Leaves. I do like House of Leaves, and like it's an experience to read, but if you want the feeling of House of Leaves in a novel, like in an actual story that you can follow and understand, Rabbits might be for you. It's also got definite Ready Player One vibes too, but it's much bigger than that. Much more conspiracy theory-y too. I just love everything about it. One of my favorite things is there's a quote right at the beginning. You know how there's usually an epigraph, but it's a fake one from someone in the story, and they're saying, some true stories are easier to accept if you can convince yourself that at least part of them are fictional. This is one of those stories. So like, I know that this is fictional, much in the same way that I knew House of Leaves was fictional, but there's always that little part in the back of my brain that's like, it's possible. And I've already begun tabbing it so much. This is very advantageous for me. There's 3 colors on here, so I have 3 types of tabs. The pink ones are for bits of media that they mention that I want to go back to. There was a mention of Donnie Darko as one of them. There's some songs, just things that if I want to fully immerse myself in a cult, much in the way of House of Leaves, there's a lot of expanded universe material available for me. The second one are orange tabs, which are references to a real life thing. I've checked most of them, and like everything so far has been real. So I'm keeping these around mostly to get my husband to tell me about them, because that man's a nerd. Because there was a bit pretty early on about a bunch of video game stuff that I hadn't heard of, but of course he's heard of it and could tell me all about it. And then the blue tabs are just cool things, or things that I think might be clues later on. To what? I don't know. But let me tell you what I think Rabbits is about 40 pages in. It's an underground alternate reality game where you find clues all over. There's clues in newspapers and in films. One of the ones that they're talking about was that there was a documentary made by a company that doesn't exist, and in the credits there's one name that doesn't have any title associated with it. It's just like a name hanging there. And if you do some cryptology on it, you get the name of a place that like it expands into the thing. It's very conspiracy theory-y, but very fun. The other thing I noticed is right here on the cover it says from the creator of the Rabbits podcast, and I want to look it up, but I don't think I can until I finish this. Part of what I'm suspecting is that this is a Welcome to Night Vale situation where it was a podcast and then it got novelized. And I think that this would be a really fun story to have in podcast form, but I cannot confirm or deny that until I finish this book, which I'm really into. I really do want to keep reading, but I think it might take me a long time just because it's dense and every other page I have to tab. There's just a lot going on. But basically the book opens with this one character who's narrating it, who you only know by Kay, and they're giving a presentation on what they know about rabbits basically. And then one of the alleged winners of one of the seasons previous shows up and is like recruiting him for help. So you're getting that story, but also Kay's background of how he found out about the game and stuff. So far so good, and I'm having so much fun. I hope I don't get burned out on it is the only thing. Like, if this takes me 10 days to read of focusing as much as I was last night, that's gonna be a lot, but I'm here for it. I just have to remind myself that however taxing this is, it's nowhere near as taxing as House of Leaves. And I can get like the vibe. I just want the feeling. This just sounds like me saying I want to join a cult, but I want to join a cult temporarily and then back out and then join a different cult. You know, you gotta shop around your cults. Anyway, 40 pages in, this is my full endorsement of rabbits. I can't believe this is going as well as it is. Obviously what moves the dead has to be crap. But anyway, I'll talk to you later because I have to go to work like some kind of a loser. I just want to sit and read my book all day. Is that too much to ask? It's noisy out here, so I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm on page 176 of this, and it's going really well. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the direction that it's heading. It's going to be weird, and I'm wondering if it's going to get paranormal, and I'm trying to articulate why I have such a distinction between sci-fi and fantasy. Like, if this is like a wormhole, dimensions, something, that I'm okay with. But if this is like underworld demons, I'm not okay with it. And I don't know why. Like, functionally it doesn't make any difference. I was thinking about Stranger Things. It is sci-fi fantasy, but they try to justify it, so I view it more as sci-fi, which means I like it more because I'm not into fantasy. So we'll see where this one goes. That's obviously personal preference, and I really don't know. Right now it's just weird, but it's so weird that like it can't just be a conspiracy or the main character losing his mind. It's really good. There's tabs galore in here. I'm having a great time, and I'm actually flying through it. And it's a beautiful day, so I'm gonna hang out here because last week was so hot that I'm actually happy to be outside now, and I have to do it while I can. This is also hard to talk about because like I don't know what I know. Like, we're learning lots of stuff and we're putting pieces together, but rabbits is such an expansive global experience that like I don't think you'll ever be able to quantify it or like properly discuss it in full. There was also a chapter called Jeff Goldblum Does Not Belong in This World, and I feel like that sets the tone. The thing with this book, and I am really enjoying it, is that it's just a little bit too long. It's a little bit too repetitive, where something will happen and they'll be like, we have to stop playing. Something spooky happens, we're in danger, we need to stop playing, and they stop playing for maybe 30 seconds, and then they're playing again. Something I get, it's realistic, but like, I don't want to read about it, and this book is over 400 pages, and that might help. But we're getting some really interesting spooky stuff now, and I don't know if I properly explained what I was thinking with like the fantasy versus sci-fi, but there's something on here that says a deadly underground game might just be altering reality itself in this surreal techno thriller set in the world of the popular Rabbits podcast. It's altering reality, and however you do that, we've gotten sort of an explanation, but also like I don't trust anything in this book. There was a mysterious info dumpy figure that we met who explained some stuff, but also was like, could be this, could not be, I don't know. And part of what I like too is they're talking about the Moriarty effect, which is just something that's like so huge and ridiculous, and like you must have to have infinite money to pull it off, which I think is very fun. Are these things something that you could pull off if you just had infinite money, or does it have to be something altering reality itself? It remains to be seen, but I'm having a really good time. You don't want to let the people see your lovely face?
Well, right now I'm naked, so no.
I've already tried to film this clip once before in the car, and it didn't work out very well, so we're just doing it here in our old faithful library. I also rearranged my shelves a little bit. I'll show you that. So my big goal was to put away all my favorite books of last year, and I did that. They're all back in their proper spots. All of the stacked books are my TBR. It got just a bit too big, and I do kind of like the distinction. I'm not sold on it yet, but it's okay. But this is always the shelf that I keep trying to do new things with. So right now it's my pretty books with the sprayed edges, and then on the left side are my upcoming TBR, the things I want to read immediately, and then in the middle I've got all the books that I've read recently. The one standing is the one that I'm currently reading. It's better. It's certainly not exactly what I want, but I'm not an aesthetic girly, so this is good enough. I'm happy being in this room again. Everything at least has a place now. I have 2 real updates to give you. 3, I don't want to talk forever. First up, we ended up watching Donnie Darko, and I really enjoyed it. Neither my husband or I had seen it before, and it was really good. It's a very cool project of a movie made in the 2000s that's referencing the 80s and watching it in 2022. There's a lot of layers to that, but I really enjoyed it. It was funny though, because like when you look it up, one of the first Google results is Donnie Darko explained, and I didn't feel like it really needed an explanation. I feel like I got it. I think there are definitely little things throughout that enhance your experience, seeing little things in the background, but I think that the movie itself is very easy to understand. I was also someone who got Inception though, so I don't know, maybe I'm just better than people. We also put on temporary tattoos from Inkbox, not a sponsor, but really liking it. My goal is to get a real tattoo for real within the next year. But anyway, Donnie Darko, highly recommend. Really fun, really good pacing and like balancing of horror stuff with comedy stuff. Really surprised, but like I'm gonna put that in my rotation. Next update is I finished Rabbits. I guess I can hold it. And I really enjoyed it. This is a hard one to talk about without spoiling things, but I will say that it definitely sets up for a sequel, so you might not get all of your questions answered. But it does do a good job of ending off the arc that we're on. I really enjoyed it. I went back and listened to a bit of the podcast, and it looks like it's a different story, but with some of the same players. Like Alan Scarpio is featured in that one too. So it's just someone else playing the game, which actually I think is a really smart move for this book to make within the same universe. You can use a lot of the same clues, but having a different character. Speaking of character, this is actually something that I discovered in the Goodreads review, which I didn't pick up on, which I feel kind of bad about, is that your main character, Kay, their gender is never specified. It's done in first person, and so you just kind of go through it. And this reviewer was saying that that's a missed opportunity because you're sort of reading in your representation. You could be reading Kay as a straight man, which is the way I was doing it, or you could be reading them as a gay woman or a non-binary person, and that sort of self-insert quality is nice, but you shouldn't have to reach for representation, basically. Not that that was necessarily what this book was trying to do, but I do think that it's an interesting thing, and it would have been interesting to have the book talk about it, because spoiler, I've started What Moves the Dead, and they do a very similar discussion about gender stuff. Theirs is a little bit too on the nose, I think. There's no like subtlety to it. It's kind of preachy. Preachy is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. It's like a thesis statement from the author instead of something that I feel like the characters would be talking about. But I think that there's a happy middle ground that neither of these books really achieved. I'm going to end up giving Rabbits 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, but there were quite a few things that bugged me. One of them was that the sense of the passage of time in here is like non-existent. Like a chapter will start and it'll be like a few months later this happened, and it's like, okay, what were they doing in the months in between? Like the characters in here are so flat that like you don't know Kay's gender or anything that they're doing outside of what we get to hear about playing the game Rabbits. Like there's obviously more stuff in there, but the book doesn't seem concerned with it. And I'm very much a plot girly. Like I don't need my characters to be great, but even these characters were too flat for me. It's also amazing how much info dump is in this book for me to still not really understand what happened. Part of it is I think it just is very complicated and dealing with a lot of sciencey things, which I don't have a problem with, but I have a problem with it like trying to explain it so thoroughly. Like, they want you to understand, and I still don't understand. So there's a disconnect there. If they wanted to leave it more up for interpretation, then they would have explained less, and I would have been okay with having a more vague understanding. And I got through it a lot faster than I expected, which is great. There's going to be a sequel. I don't think I'm going to pick it up. I think I got everything that I wanted out of this, but I'm happy I read it. Good morning, quick update for you. I am slowly making my way through, this is Awayland, and I hate it. I think it's going to end up in my worst books of the year, because I don't have that many 1 stars, and I think this is swiftly heading toward a 1 star. I finished the 3 stories in the next section. I'm never going to remember what they are. Oh yeah, Motherland, that was about a white woman in Africa. It sucked. Departure Lounge. Oh, that was the one that started interesting and then got bad. It was about this woman who was in a Mars colony simulation sort of thing on Hawaii, which I've like heard about before. They don't explain it. But anyway, then she leaves that to go get pregnant with her college ex-boyfriend who is gay. Wow, what a great story. And then Remedy was the stupidest thing of all. It was about this woman who's convinced that she's dying, so she wants to get a hand transplant. It was truly one of the weirdest things I've ever read, but like not in a good way, not in an explainable way. Maybe there's literary merit there, I don't know, but I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna DNF it. There's only 5 stories left and they seem to get shorter, but I am not enjoying this in the slightest. Your eyes do not deceive you. I am back to talk about the next 3 stories. Did I like them? No. We have Club Zeus, which is about this high schooler going to work at a resort in Europe, and it was fine. I thought it was going to be good, and then it got really not good. And then High Desert, which was about motherhood. I should mention almost all of the stories in here are about motherhood. Just like you think it's a normal story, and then all of a sudden it swoops in and it's about babies. Just definitely not what I thought I was getting into. And then Heaven was okay. It was 3 pages, so I liked it for that. Good morning. I have been informed by my husband that today is a chore day, which I think is very rude of him, that he didn't consider whether I might like living in filth. And he feels really limiting, but fine, whatever, we'll do chores today. We're gonna finish the biggest chore of all, which is finishing Awayland, and those final 2 stories, it'll get done, I promise. But first of all, we have to talk about What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher, which I accidentally read all of without updating you. Oops. Luckily, this isn't one that I feel like needs a ton of updates, and a lot of what I want to talk to you about was in the author's note at the end. So what I gather from the author's note is that this is a retelling of The House of Usher, but an expanded version, where Kingfisher had questions about like how this particular illness worked, wanted more fleshed out characters, stuff like that. So all of the names are the same and the time period is the same, but it's more. And this book is basically a science book about mushrooms. Like, it's not, but it feels that way a lot of the time. And it sounds like they put a great deal of effort into learning as much as I could about mushrooms. Why did I want to say microbes? But the author's note also acknowledges that this is basically just Mexican Gothic. The whole time while I was reading it, I was thinking this is just like a small version of Mexican Gothic. And in the author's note, she talks about how she wrote this story and then read this and was like, oh no, this is so much of what I'm trying to do, a Gothic house, a mushroom theme. And doesn't say that this is a better version, but does encourage you to read Mexican Gothic, which I think I would as well. I think that What Moves the Dead is an unnecessary entry in this. Like, I think it either needed to be shorter, which would have just been the original short story, or longer and bigger when it would have been Mexican Gothic. But the author's note is dated July 2020, so I wonder if they delayed publication of that book a little bit to give it some distance from Mexican Gothic. I absolutely don't think that anything is a ripoff of anything else. I just think that like this is a type of story that is very similar. I know it seems like I'm talking negative about it, but I enjoyed it. I really like T. Kingfisher's writing in particular. It got a very fun tone and like a sarcastic main character and just like witty humor. It almost feels like Austen-esque humor. Just in sort of like that effortlessness where like they say something biting and you don't realize until you like think about it. And all of T. Kingfisher's books feature an animal companion. In this one, it was a horse named Hob, who I love very much. But I just don't think that this did enough for me that I wouldn't have already gotten from Mexican Gothic or the short story. There were some good spooks and some really good writing, but I don't feel like it had a good tension build to it. We spent a lot of time talking about science stuff. I'm just noticing also how messy this is and that I didn't clean it, so maybe we should do a chores day. So I'm going to end up giving What Moves the Dead 3 stars. Really enjoyed it. Really want to explore T. Kingfisher more. I think just as a horror novel, this didn't really work and should have been cut shorter. Oh, and I should mention, because I talked about it briefly in Rabbits, that What Moves the Dead had a bit of an exploration of gender. It has an expanded world where basically soldiers get their own pronouns, which I think is a really cool idea. It definitely goes into it a lot and maybe over-explains it, but maybe it over-explained it for me, and for other people they would find that explanation helpful, but I just felt like it brought the pacing to a halt, sort of. I like all of the elements here, I just want them reconfigured and stuff. So yeah, we're almost done with the Rabbit vlog. In 30 pages, I'm gonna sit here and you'll see me in 30 pages and then we will all be happy and we can wrap this thing up. Maybe I'll clean this first. We did it. It's finally over. Unfortunately, this complicates things because one of the 2 stories I read, I actually really liked. The one I didn't like was called Do Not Save the Ferocious, Save the Tender. It was bad. But the one that I did like was The Animal Mummies Wish to Thank the Following. And that was really good. I think that the 2 in here that I genuinely liked were the ones that were sort of playing off of a trope. Something where you feel you know the standard content that should be in it and then it kind of flips it. So the first one was the Cyclops filling out a dating profile. And then this last one was like an award speech, like it's would like to thank the following, which is a pretty standard nothing, but it talked a lot about animal mummies and it was kind of cool. But the reason that it's a problem and complicates things is because I have been giving this book a 1 star in my brain the whole time, but if there's something in it that I genuinely liked, shouldn't I give it a 2? What are the rules around that? Like, it's a short story collection. I do not recommend reading this book, but reading that 1 short story was fine. I think it's still gonna end up being a 1 because like even that story wasn't a 5-star story for me. I just didn't hate it. I had positive feelings toward it, which is a lot for this book. Yeah, 1 star feels right for this. My bad for picking it up and not knowing what it was about, but at least it's done. And now the video's done, so we can do a recap. We started with Bunny by Mona Awad, a 5-star read for me. Obsessed with it, still am thinking about it after reading all of these other books. That one's probably the hardest book to recommend to you, but I really enjoyed it. If it appeals to you, know that it's weird, but the ending definitely makes everything worth it. Then we read Rabbits by Terry Miles, a 4-star read. Really enjoyable, little things that I would want to change, super weird but accessible. And then we read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Still weird, definitely not as weird as the previous 2, and very non-weird for horror. Very easy to understand, very to the point, but still effective. And we give it 3 stars. And then Awayland by Ramona Ausubel, a 1-star read. Sorry about it. I think this should just be me officially swearing off short stories because they never work for me other than like Ted Chiang. Those really work for me. So I think if I'm going to do it in the future, I need it to be a genre fiction and to just generally be more picky. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me for the Rabbit vlog. Again, I will link Kayla's video down below once it's up. But I hope that you enjoyed spending some time with me. Let me know if any of these books have piqued your interest. And I will see you very soon in another video. Bye!